All right, so I want you to check out all this inventory that's sitting at this Ford lot. They are parking vehicles in the road. In this video, I want to talk to you about what these dealers are actually paying for a lot of these Broncos, these F-150s that are sitting at these dealerships rotting away. I want to talk about where money is coming from, where their profits are coming from, where their spreads are coming from, because they're not coming from these vehicles that are actually sitting on their lot. So I'm gonna show you what these dealers are paying for these vehicles. I want to talk about Ford's problems right now with their inventory. They're at 100 days supply of inventory right now, 103 days to be exact. So let's start right there. This is another dealership that I've been to recently. Look at all of these trucks that are sitting on this lot. I'll just pause right there because these three trucks right there with the orange grills in front of them, those are all Harley Davidson trucks. So this dealership, they actually do a lot of high-end F-150s and F-250s, F-350s. They have a lot of Harley Davidson, a lot of the Black Widow packages, a lot of Shelbys. And when I've gone to this dealership, I've seen rows and rows of these 110 to $130,000 trucks sitting at this dealership. And when you step back to just we'll call them the regular F-150s, then you're seeing 70, 80, $90,000 for a lot of these trucks. And I want to go in and actually look at some of these invoice prices and see what a lot of these dealerships are adding after the fact. A lot of the accessories that are coming from the factory too, that are creating this very large spread that goes from invoice price to your MSRPs, and then all the money that's after the fact, after your MSRP, that you get to pay at a lot of these dealerships. But I want to pause it right here to show you, okay, look at all these Broncos, and then behind those Broncos, there's F-150s, and then if you look to the right-hand side of the screen, you see more Broncos that are actually lined up on the road. This dealership has a major problem, and what I want to point out about Ford specifically, now this is a problem that a lot of car manufacturers are dealing with right now, but Ford specifically, because we just got their earnings, and what they said is their dealer body has 103 days supply of inventory. And traditionally, the kind of Goldilocks zone for a lot of these dealerships, what they want to have for their supply of inventory is right around 50 days. And right now, Ford has double that. So I want to actually pull up their stock price because dealers have known the issues for a very long time now, and now shareholders have known it for a very long time. So you can look at their stock price over the last year, and Ford has lost 28% of their market cap just in the last year. So investors have seen that Ford and the car market in general is really just not a place that they want to be putting their money. And with Ford now saying that their dealers have double the amount of inventory that really in the car market we've seen that we're comfortable with, well, there's a big time problem there. And I know that we've had Ford, GM, even Stellantis for a quarter or two saying that their sales are going up. But the problem is that their sales can be going up, but their dealers can still be hurting in a massive way because the amount of vehicles that they're getting from the manufacturer greatly is so much greater than the amount of vehicles that are actually going out. So what you have is you have allocations from Ford dealers right now that are being turned down. So when you have all of these Ford dealers that look similar to the two Ford dealers that I just showed you, where they have so much inventory, they don't have an empty spot. They have to park Broncos, F-150s, blocking other Broncos and F-150s because they're just run out of parking spots. Well, when you have all these allocations that get cut, that's when Ford, the manufacturer, starts to get hit. Because remember, I mean, me and you, we're not Ford's customers. It's the dealers. Now, we, as a consumer base, are consumers for the dealerships. So when the dealerships get overrun with inventory, they have to cut prices, or you have the situation where you have, just like we just saw, all of these vehicles stacked up at these dealerships, and the consumers are just saying no. So when the consumers say no, then the dealerships then have to say no to Ford, to their manufacturer, and that's when allocations get cut, and that's when a manufacturer can really start hurting, and that's what we're seeing right now. All right, so let's start off looking at some of these Broncos, and these are the big body Broncos. They're not the Bronco Sports, and these are the 2025s. Now, a lot of those Broncos I showed you at that dealership were still 2024s, but these are the new 2025s that are coming out. And what I want to point out, I've seen a lot of the Badlands packages. MSRP on those is $50,000, but you can see what their invoice price is. If I can highlight it, there is $48,000. So you only have a spread of what's that? That's $1,700 on that. And then when you go to the lower trim models, this is a big bin model. I've seen a lot of those. It's $40,000, and what the dealer is paying is $39,000. So what I want to point out is that the spread across those different models is very, very thin. And you would think that the dealer would make more money off actually selling the vehicle. And in the last few years, the spreads have been bigger. They have been able to make a lot more money because they were able to sell MSRP or over. But traditionally, that's not the case. Traditionally, these dealers, they don't make money off selling the actual vehicle. That's why if you go in there, you hear a lot of videos saying don't pay cash, or don't at least don't say that you're paying cash, because the dealership's going to be less negotiable because they make more money off back end products. And there are a few different ways where dealers can actually make money because traditionally they're not making money off the sale of the actual vehicle. So you have all of your add-on products. You think nitrogen, paint protectant, all that stuff is very, very high margin for the dealer. You have dealer holdback. This is something that I hear a lot in my comments saying, well, dealers are they don't have to make money on the actual car because they're making so much money from the manufacturer. And I can show you, this is what AI pulled up for the definition of dealer holdback. It's the sum of money paid to a car dealership by the manufacturer after they sell a new vehicle. This is basically just money that the manufacturer will pay the dealer for vehicles that they sell on their lot, and it's typically between like 1% and 3%. So on a $50,000 vehicle, that's the average price of a new vehicle right now. It's an extra $1,500, and it's just free money for the dealer. So when you look at that invoice pricing, it's almost just like shade that's being given to a consumer, because you can have a dealership that says, okay, we'll sell you a vehicle at invoice, and the salesman be like, we can't go any lower than that because we're not making any money on it. But when they get their dealer holdback, they can get marketing assistance, they can get floor plan assistance. Dealerships will sell you F&I products. When you go back in the finance office, when they actually sell you a loan, they're packaging a lot of these loans, or they're getting money for actually for being able to sell you that loan through whatever bank that they're selling it for. They make money on gap insurance. They make money on extended warranties. That's a big one, huge margin. Already talked about all that, the add-ons that you're paying for at a lot of these dealerships, and making tons of margin on that. Doc fees. Doc fees are 100% profit for the dealership, and that's just something that's being tacked on. So when you look at this invoice pricing, and I'll show you the F-150 invoices in just a second. But when you look at this invoice pricing, it's almost like it's, yes, this is what the dealership is cutting a check for these vehicles, but there's so many more different ways for these dealerships to make money after the fact. There's so much more money that comes from the manufacturer. You think rebates or incentives that a consumer can get from the manufacturer. It works almost the same way, because even though this dealer is paying this invoice, they know that when they sell the vehicle, they're getting a check cut to them for $1,500. They know when a consumer is going to buy that vehicle, they're getting that extra $800 for their doc fee. They know that they're getting floor plan assistance. They know that they're getting marketing assistance. All these things are being added on to the bottom line for a lot of these dealerships, where the invoice price almost doesn't matter. They can make zero money off the front end selling this vehicle and still end up making $4, $5, $6,000 on the actual sale of a vehicle after they pay commission to their sales associate. And I want to go back and talk about floor plan assistance, because floor plan assistance, where right now a lot of these dealerships, as you've seen me show a lot of these dealerships that are stacking up on inventory, floor plan assistance is now something that's not necessarily helping as much as it was in the past 3 years, because a floor plan is basically what a car dealer uses to buy their inventory. It's like a credit card. It's a revolving line of credit. They don't pay cash for their cars. They use these credit lines to buy their cars. So whenever they do put all these new vehicles on their floor plan, then the manufacturer gives them money to help them pay down the interest on this. And over the last 3 years, dealers were flipping cars so quickly. And I talk about that arbitrary number of the 50 days supply for every manufacturer. It was well below that when we had a lot of these production issues because of the pandemic. So they were flipping cars so quickly that they weren't having to pay any floor plan interest, pay any floor plan fees, because they were flipping the cars so quickly. So all of that floor plan assistance was then just going right onto the vehicle as more profit. So traditionally, that floor plan assistance is not going to cover the full amount of what dealers are actually paid for their floor plans. But over the last 3 years, it was a profit center for a lot of these dealerships. Now it's not. So that's one thing that can really get knocked down a little bit, as far as profit that's going that you can bake into what these dealers are paid on top of invoice, but because they're not really getting that free money anymore, just because. Just for the example of Ford, where they go from, okay, they had 50 days supply of inventory. That's where they wanted to be about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Now we're at 103 days supply of inventory. It's crazy to think about the amount of increase that's happened in just a short amount of time, because for the manufacturer, a lot of these other manufacturers are pumping these dealers full of inventory that they just can't hold anymore. All right, now so let's pull up some invoices on the F-150s. This is what a lot of people want to see. This is a lot of the common trims that you're going to see. The STX is the lowest level of the retail side that you're going to see. You'll bump up to the XLT, the Lariat, and then the Platinum, and then obviously your Raptor is your highest one. But I want to point out this one right here. This is your Ford F-150 XL. This is traditionally saved for a lot of fleet customers, a lot of commercial. I have seen a couple of these 2024s that are sitting where retail customers can actually buy them. But it's interesting that when I go and look at these XLs, our 2024s, that for whatever reason just didn't get sold to a commercial buyer, just standard like two-door truck, bench seat. You got a fold down little middle thing, not even a center console in the truck. I've not seen a price of $37,000. Now I'm getting these invoice prices, these MSRPs. This is all coming from CarEdge. You can check that out there if you want to see a lot of the similar stuff that I'm seeing. But this MSRP on this Ford XL is $37,350. But the cheapest one that I've seen on an actual lot is $45,000. So what ends up happening in a lot of cases when you see these base level MSRPs, and I can point it out here because I've seen it in real life, is that they'll add some things. Maybe it'll be an upgrade on a wheel. There'll be an upgrade on some running boards. There'll be an upgrade on a bed liner that's already in the truck. And a lot of that stuff can come from the factory, can come from their distribution centers or whatever. But they make extra margin on that. And that's going to be Ford that makes the extra margin, and then they sell those packages to the dealerships. And this is why when you go and you see online, like starting at numbers, and GM's really bad about this too, because I went to a car show in Charlotte that's near me, and they had like a Colorado. It said starting at like $29,000, and I looked up across the country, and like the cheapest Colorado that I could find that was available for sale across the whole country was like $31,000. So when you see these starting at prices, they're going to be trucks and vehicles and SUVs and cars that just don't exist, because a lot of these added on accessories, running boards, things that can be added on and the factory and the distribution center, then those things are very high margin products for Ford. So they might have made one of this $37,000 XL truck. They might have made one of this $47,000 STX right here. But usually you're not going to find something like that. But anyway, I want you to look at some of the spreads on the F-150s. They're going to be higher than what we see on the Bronco. And the reason being is because we know that Ford has had a big time hard time selling a lot of these Broncos. We've even had them come out and say, okay, we have to cut production of a lot of these Broncos because they're just not moving. And if you remember from the video I showed you at the very beginning of this video, that there's Broncos stacked in the grass. There was Broncos lined up, and then there were Broncos blocking other Broncos because they just run out. They have run out of places to put them. So the Bronco, I think, is going to fall down as one of these niche types of vehicles, at least the big body ones, where, okay, we had a big craze over the Bronco when it first came out. We had a lot of sales. In 2022, tons of sales of the Ford Bronco. And then you had 2023 where the sales went down a little bit on the Bronco. And then 2024, they went back up a little bit. But in 2024, they still sold fewer Broncos than they did in 2022, which seems almost ridiculous to me because what were we dealing with back in 2022? Well, we were dealing with production issues on these Broncos. And now we get to get through 2024, and we're not selling as many Broncos in 2024 as we did in 2022. So I think that just shows that there was a big craze for this Bronco. Everyone who was going to buy a Bronco bought one in 2022, and now it's kind of died off. The hype has died off, and we see that a lot of these Broncos are now stacking up at dealers, and they're becoming a problem, so much so that Ford has backed up production on them. But I got off topic a little bit. We'll go back to these F-150s. Just want to talk about how there's more spread on the F-150s because the F-150s right now for a lot of these dealerships for Ford, the manufacturer, are easier to sell than the Broncos right now. So you can see the Lariat, which is a higher level trim. We got about $4,000 to play with right there. So that's a pretty good spread from your invoice to your MSRP. And if you have a dealer that can actually sell one of these Lariats at MSRP, then everyone's high-fiving each other because they're making $4,000 on the front end, and then they get to make everything on the back end. But right now, if you're an educated consumer, which I hope if you're watching this is because you are an educated consumer, and if you are looking to buy an F-150 or one of these Broncos, then you know that the issues that Ford's dealing with, you're seeing the inventory and you're like, okay, supply and demand, don't throw that at me anymore, salesperson, because it just doesn't apply here. You have 20 of the same thing sitting right next to this one that I'm interested in. So you'll be able to buy a lot of these vehicles, the F-150s, Broncos. I would imagine F-150s right now, 10-15% off MSRP. You should be able to get at a Ford dealership that is wanting to sell vehicles. Broncos, I have no clue. They've cut production. They've got too many of them. I would imagine 15 to 20% would be my guess, or at least what I would try for. I can't imagine not being able to get 10% off MSRP on a Bronco right now. Anyway, just going back to the F-150s, because I want to look at the Platinum too. Platinum, you still got, there's another about $5,000 worth of spread there. So it just shows you the difference between a vehicle that's not selling and a vehicle that they can still sell. And what's interesting with the F-150 is even though the dealers are full of them, it's still the number one selling truck in the U.S. And it's going to be probably for the next at least few years, unless somebody else is going to be able to come up and get a truck that people can actually afford. But F-150 is the standard in the truck market for the U.S. at least, and you're going to be able to command that kind of spread with the F-150. A lot of these dealers, even though they're overloaded with them, they're still selling them. Sales are going up, but it's because Ford has added a lot of incentives, and this is what I see a lot where there's not a big understanding where, okay, the car market can be in a rough spot, but sales are still going up. But what's happened in the car market while you're still seeing sales go up? Well, you're seeing incentives go up, you're seeing layoffs go up, you're seeing a lot of these manufacturer stocks go down. How is that happening all at the same time? Well, it's because the average selling price is going down. And the reason why it's going down is because manufacturers have to spend money to help dealers sell cars. And this, just tie this all in right here at the end, this is where a lot of the money that dealers make come from. It's not from the front end. It's not from the consumer. A lot of the money that dealers are going to make are going to come from manufacturers. They're going to come from holdback. It's going to come from floor plan assistance. It's going to come from marketing assistance. It's going to come from spiffs. I used to work at Sears and sell TVs on commission. Every once in a while, if they needed TVs moved, they would put what's called a spiff on a particular TV, and it would entice the salespeople to push consumers to this TV. That's a very old school example of this. I would imagine there's no TV salesmen that are actually on commission anymore. And I was like 18 when I was doing this. But the manufacturers can add extra money on top of specific vehicles that need to be moved. Nissan right now, what they're doing is they're adding money on the front end for Muranos for Nissan dealers. So if they take extra Muranos, then they're getting like an extra $1,500 for everyone that they're taking. And then if they sell them, they're getting like an extra $1,000 or $1,500 on the back end from the manufacturer. So just right off the bat, the manufacturer is giving a Nissan dealer like $3,000 for them to buy and to sell these Muranos. And a lot of these manufacturers will continue to do this as we play more of the volume game. They have to incentivize dealers. They have to incentivize consumers to get butts in seats. This is what we're seeing right now. Lots of problems in the car market, specifically with Ford and their inventory. And this is how dealers and manufacturers can combat some of the harder times where they're not making money on the vehicles. They make money on the back end, and they make money from the manufacturer.